we'll move on to Seed of Chucky from 2004. Chucky and Tiffany, they're resurrected by their gender-confused daughter or son and hit Hollywood, where a movie depicting their murder spree from the previous movie is underway. Now, I know that you don't like this movie, and I think it is generally regarded as the weakest movie in the franchise to this point. For me, yes, it is probably the weakest movie in the franchise as well, but there's two things that still, to me, don't make it... Well, the main thing here is Chucky. He's in the movie. And like I've said for other franchises, like Freddy Krueger, as long as that character is in the movie, it's watchable. And still somewhat entertaining. And that obviously goes without saying for Chucky, because, for those who don't know, Child's Play is my all-time favourite movie. So, I am a big Chucky fan, and if Chucky's in the movie, and it's Brad Dourif, what's not to like about that? However, we do know that this movie has the dumbest plot out of all the movies in the franchise. I mean, Don Mancini, he wrote every single Chucky movie, and this is his first time directing a Chucky movie. I think he does okay in terms of shooting the movie. I think actually the writing in the movie is the problem here. And for someone who wrote the first 4 movies, for him to come in and fuck up this one, at least the writing side of it, as bad as it has been, kind of ironic, considering the thing we should have more concern about is the directing, because it's his first time directing, but no, it's the other way around. Anyways, before we get into more of this, what do you have to say on this movie?
Yeah, so I mean, Chucky basically hit it. My main problem with this one, and I think that a few problems with this movie, but it comes down to one thing. I hate this story. I despise it. I don't find it justifiable. Like, Bride of Chucky went a slightly more comedic direction, and I know that I used to like the movie more than I did when I last saw it. But this movie has almost nothing going for it, at least as far as I can see. The whole addition of Glen/Glenda has to be one of the most misguided choices I've ever seen in movie making. When the scene opens with like Glen/Glenda having a nightmare, and then he wakes up, or she wakes up with a British accent, like, that's about, let's say, 10 minutes into the movie, and as soon as that happened, I was pretty much done. And not much that happened past that point did much to change my mind. I mean, it was just embarrassing. And, Bride of Chucky had some okay things going for it, even if I thought it was a bit too silly. But this one is like 99% silly and maybe 1% almost okay. Even some like the quote-unquote funny scenes, like these two characters talking on the phone, and then Tiffany's cutting into the conversation. The character's like, "Oh, why did you say it?" It's like, "Oh, I didn't say it," and they can't tell that it's a slightly different voice. I didn't find almost any of it particularly amusing. But it's mainly the story. The story was not the direction I would have taken the series. And luckily, while this is the worst movie, I do think they get significantly better past this point. But watching this one, it's difficult for me.
The one thing about this movie that does... I don't want to say it has a special place for me, but this is the only Chucky movie I've managed to see in a theater. So, I never got to see any of the previous movies in a theater, obviously because the first 3 came out when I was a little kid. But Bride of Chucky, I was still quite young in high school, so going to the theaters is not something I was really able to do at that time. So this is the one and only movie I've managed to actually see on the big screen. And the only way I actually got to see it was like a it was a movie marathon type thing. They played like at least 3 or 4 movies. Seed of Chucky was the first one, but it started at midnight. So the 3 or 4 movies we watched went all the way through to like 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. So it wasn't the most ideal situation to go watch this movie, but hey, sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do. So it does kind of have a little bit of a special place in my heart for that reason, but I can still definitely say that it is the worst movie in the franchise. Cult actually, I still have to watch Cult a little bit more, but Cult, the more I think about it, is probably getting close on that level. It's close.
Well, I'll say that Cult of Chucky, in my opinion, I think had a lot of problems, but it didn't have this many problems.
I think the thing that really caps it off for me is towards the end where Chucky and Glen or Glenda are fighting, and the Glen or Glenda character does this fucking Matrix flip or whatever the fuck that was. That was just, like I said, that just capped off how silly the movie is, and it was just so ridiculous that part kind of pisses me off.
That's pretty much how I feel, only for the whole movie.
But it still has Chucky in it. He's still enjoyable. Jennifer Tilly's tits are more than welcome in this movie. That's the highlights for me.
I mean, for me, there's pretty much only like maybe 2 highlights. There were 2 kills in the movie I sort of enjoyed. There's a flamethrower kill and also a disembowelment, I believe. And neither one was like special, but it was at least it was, you know, at least it was okay.
You didn't like the acid death for John Waters?
It was fine. I'll be honest, to this day, I have no idea why John Waters is important. I hear his name mentioned all the time, I don't know who the guy is. So that didn't like have any type of special connection to me or anything. But the acid kill itself was okay. I just don't think it stood out as much as some of the other ones. But the unfortunate thing is that aside from that, and maybe a character who I sort of liked mainly because I thought she was somewhat attractive, but she was also somewhat stupid, this movie had little going for it. When it comes to my taste in movies, when a movie gets this over the top silly, I check out. It was the same with our Triloquist that we discussed some episodes back, and The Greasy Strangler, which I hated with a passion. Like, both those movies were just way over the top, and Greasy Strangler had an interesting atmosphere to it. It didn't feel the same as this one, but it was still way over the top, and I just, when it comes to my movies, that's not really what I look for.
Return of the bullshit artist.
I'm here every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just say I think Chucky's a pretty good character. It's a shame they made this movie that ruined everything about him. So I gave Cat a pretty low rating of 3 out of 10, and I just want to further add that I actually paid to watch that movie. I paid like $6 to see Cat. So I paid to watch Cat, and I still gave it, I think a fair, honest rating in my opinion. This movie I disliked even more. It might sound like, oh my god, such a hater, but I give Seed of Chucky a 2 out of 10, which isn't too dissimilar from either The Greasy Strangler or Triloquist, which I think I gave both a 1. So, hey, the movie's just a bit better, guys.
Okay. So I'm going to... So this is one of those weird things for me where, obviously, I love the Chucky character, and like I said, that really helps to make the movie watchable for me. And even though I definitely acknowledge it's the worst movie in the series, and it's terribly written, but I can still watch it and not be bored or anything like that. So I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I did for a moment even consider an 8 just because...
Oh god, just because you hate me.
Well, just because I just find Chucky that entertaining that I can always watch him in anything. But don't worry, I'll give it a 7. I'm not going to go that high. I'll give it a 7, and we'll leave it at that.